Hello and welcome to today's Roadcast. This is a video essay entitled Centralized Digital ID and Currencies are a Tyrannical Trap, built on an already fraudulent monetary system. Here is why they are doomed to failure. The puppet criminal government of the disunited kingdom is, at the behest of its financial overlords, looking to impose a digital ID card on the populace called a Brit-Card. There are two key points to be noted here. Number one, nothing can be imposed or mandated without the individual consenting to it. Number two, this is an attempt by said criminal government to implement the instructions of a foreign agency. Wherefore, number one is unlawful on its face, and number two is an act of treachery being committed by the traitors in Westminster, commonly known as the UK Parliament. As such, the sovereign individual is under no obligation to comply with any of it. In fact, were he to do so, and complying with tyranny never ends well, he would be in breach of the law. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. It's a matter of record that the IMF/Bank of International Settlements, the European Central Bank, and any and all states operating under the egregious aegis of the fraudulent financiers, namely the House of Rothschild, are pushing the global implementation of digital currencies. And here's a slide from a tweet which was posted back in May. Resist CBDC is the name of the account. IMF shyster Christine Lagarde, and there's a picture of her in her a silk scarf and her orange man jacket, now at the European Central Bank, the ECB, is, quote, accelerating the pace of the digital euro rollout by October 2025. Agenda 2030 can be enforced in a cashless economy. CBDC must already be in place, and that has to be assigned to your digital ID. Centralized digital currencies are an attempt to insert a panopticon of electronic surveillance into what is already a corrupt financial system. In this insane technocratic world, your credit extensions are entirely subject to the whims of the controllers, the AI systems, which are but very fast search engines when all said and done, which are also incapable of real thought, in the same way you may say a sub-Saharan African is, and so-called smart contracts. In fact, you could say, in a world that's been completely inverted, all of this is the opposite to what it claims to be. So a so-called smart contract is perhaps one of the dumbest things of all. On top of which, we have the salient fact that under common law, under the ancient law, a money, land, or possession claim will be dismissed in the event that the original and verified as the true note of indebtedness, a deed of mortgage being a prime example, cannot be produced, a possession claim as an example. Under the common law, if a claimant, one of the British licensed creditors, turns up with a possession claim for someone's house, and they have not got the original note of indebtedness, the original debt instrument, namely the deed of mortgage, a valid deed of mortgage, then under common law their claim would be instantly dismissed. And this has always been the case, but of course over the last 100 years or so, with the dumbing down of the populace to the point where very few people even know what a promissory note is or have any true understanding of how money is not something we have in a debt-based system. All we have is credit extensions. Then it's quite easy to see how it has operated so deleteriously over the last 80, 90 years or so. But prior to that, it was always clear and understood that the law stated if you did not have that original debt instrument, then your claim would be dismissed. And this was why in the mid 1200s, Simon de Montfort of Leicester deployed an armed militia to go around and seize the strong boxes of the Jewish financiers. He had them destroy any and all original debt instruments contained therein, and without these shitars, as the mortgage note was originally called, and without these debt notes, everybody knew there could be no claim. Spin forward 800 plus years and you'll see that the captured British judiciary has attempted to cover that fact over in the sense that they will accept any dog-eared copy, any photocopy or electronic version of a mortgage deed and falsely state that that is acceptable to prove the banker has a claim over someone's house, even when that deed of mortgage is demonstrably void from the very beginning because of the various frauds that are attached to it. And if we go back 100 years to America, and I think it was in Oklahoma, we had this character whose real name was Charles Arthur Floyd, but he operated under the alias of Frank Mitchell, and he was known as Pretty Boy Floyd, and he was operating out of Kansas City. And if you look at the slide there, you'll see a picture of him. A bank robber named Pretty Boy Floyd was known for destroying mortgage papers on heists, freeing hundreds of people from property debt. What he did, and he was a bank robber, that much is plain to state, but much of his story has become misrepresented. What he actually did was when he robbed these banks, he would make a point of seizing all these debt instruments, these mortgage deeds, and various other assignments and financial instruments. And he would destroy them, falling on behalf of the people. And this is why he was a hero. This is why Woody Guthrie, the famous folk singer, wrote and dedicated a song to the exploits of Pretty Boy Floyd. Because at that time, there were sufficient people who understood the truth of what I'm saying now. Without the original deed of mortgage, without the original instrument of indebtedness, then there could be no claim. And so, when he seized these boxes, he was simply carrying on the work that Simon de Montfort had done and destroying these debt instruments. And I salute him for that. I salute both of them for that. It's just a shame that we are at this point now where the British judiciary, a captured operation, has been taken over by foreign agencies who are all operating foreign on behalf of the banksters. The fraudulent financial system, I would argue, is already dead and buried for the reasons stated. The proposed electronic system of complete authoritarian control is doomed for the reasons stated. Central digital currencies are a clumsy and desperate attempt to take the tyranny to another level entirely. However, being built on an already defeated fraudulent financial system, this attempt to lever total control is destined to fail. After all, what kind of moron builds his house on swampland? What I'm stating here is that the Great British Mortgage Swindle, council tax, loans of all descriptions, each and every one of these has been revealed and rumbled as the fraud that it is. And when you know that fraud vitiates everything, when you know the significance of what I'm saying here, you will see that the victory has already been attained. All we're doing now is going through the motions, and that anyone who's working for and on behalf of the council and of these licensed credit brokers and the government and claiming that monies are owned is effectively a zombie, a fuckwit kind of individual who is simply going through the motions and acting as though the truth is not the truth, acting under the aegis, under the control system that they've been trained within. And, the fact is, if you put someone on notice of their fraud and you point out exactly why it is fraud, then you've won. because anything that they do after that is unlawful. And in such circumstances, as we know, all they've got to back up their claim is the use of violence and criminality. That's all they have. But when more and more people stand up to this, when more and more people feel confident to express themselves, to speak the truth, regardless of any threats from any outside agency, then the numbers of people doing that will become so great, and the confidence within each individual. Remember, I've always said, and I always will say, that it is down to the sovereign individual to effect the change that he wishes to see. It's not to be found in the collective. Change does not come through the collective. It comes through the awkward, the distinctive, the powerful and sovereign individual. That's the bottom line. Anything else is a distraction, an attempt to draw you into a flock of collectivization. The proposed digital Brit-Card will not happen when sufficient numbers refuse to comply with it, and the same can be said for the CBDC. Both are blatant attempts at imposing an electronic panopticon on the populace with the inherent ability to cut off access to an individual's credit in the event that he is deemed to be in breach of some bogus community guideline and/or he has criticised those who cannot be criticised, those protected classes of people. Just off the top of my head, we could say the Mohammedans come into that, as do those who follow Judaism, the Talmudists. As ever, I'd like to back up my statements, my conjectures and my theories by personal experience. So when I talk about this subject, I would like to remind you all that back in February, I was debanked by the cooperative bank. So that was my experience. Why did the co-op bank debank me is the question. They've never provided an answer to that, and I don't expect they ever will, because in the majority, and it's not just me, Michael Benisia was debanked by the same entity within days of me receiving my 60-day account closure notice. So make of that what you will. You can rest assured it's because both of us, and any other individual that's experienced this, in their eyes, in the eyes of the bank and the government, will have been expressing opinions and narratives that run counter to the lies of the fake state. You're not getting along with the narrative, you're promoting the truth rather than the fake narrative of the fake state. That's what they don't like. I would posit, even though I don't have the actual evidence because the bankers refused to provide it, I would posit that there was some collaboration going on here with the government and with the bank to have me debanked because they did not like the truth which I was expressing about the criminality of their operations. When I'm talking about the government and or the financial system. In both instances, as I say, no reason was provided for the closure of the accounts. However, rather than being deterred by this, each of us would do well to remember that it is a numbers game. When a sufficient volume of people, acting individually, refuse to comply with the tyranny, the so-called thin blue line will become as effective as the broken elastic in a whore's knickers. This is why I consistently encourage the individual to recognise his own sovereignty and speak the truth without fear or favour. Not only will your confidence grow and inspire others to speak out, but the long arm of the law will simultaneously become withered and completely ineffective in the face of a mass non-compliance. And at that point, it clearly is game over for the tyrants. In other words, we see a lot of videos of cut-out coppers turning up at people's houses, standing on their doorsteps and falsely claiming that they'd like to come in and speak with them. The so-called victim is never identified, but they say someone has been a victim of what you've stated. What you've written, what you've expressed has upset someone. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. That they are feeling hurt because of some words or some actions that were expressed, or a cartoon or something visual has been expressed. And it's nonsense. because what we're looking at essentially is a victimless crime. In fact, it's not even a crime, because no harm has been caused. It's all a mental construct. It's this notion that people's feelings, if you hurt someone's feelings, you are causing them harm. And even as I say this, I know that that sounds completely ridiculous, and it is ridiculous. But nevertheless, this is what these bogus policy officers who are poncing about in these black uniforms are actually doing. They're seeking to impose a nonsensical and fraudulent form of legalese over individuals. So, to summarise then, I would say, as a sovereign individual, your non-compliance is not only the correct course of action, but it's also correct for you to take the position that you are not going to tolerate any of this, and you will not have anyone attempt to curtail your right to freedom of expression. And the more people that do this, right, and rather than feeling kowtowed by it, rather than feeling fearful of the long arm of the law, which really is not that long and is actually increasingly very withered, you will grow in the sense that you will become empowered, and your empowerment, your confidence will inspire others to act likewise. So rather than accepting all of this tyranny, when the individual speaks out and refuses to comply with it, then the tyranny will naturally will be defeated. And it's not a case of if, it's a case of when. Because the numbers of people speaking out and expressing themselves, and I'm talking about those who are, standing under the truth, under the facts of the matter, is growing to such a large volume that, quite simply, there won't be enough policy enforcement officers to actually deal with it. That's what you're looking at here. They've lost control of the narrative. They have no way of imposing any legal restraints over people who refuse to comply. And remember, all of it is dependent upon your consent, upon them engineering an agreement, in other words, your acquiescence to that which they are doing. And the simple solution to that is one word: no. As ever, thank you for your attention. If you're able, please consider taking out a paid subscription on Substack or chucking in a few quid into the rogue mail coffers by way of the Buy Me a Coffee button. Until the next time, my friends, I'll catch you on the flip side. Cheers.
A story I will tell about pretty boy Floyd, an outlaw. Oklahoma knew him well. It was in the town of Shawnee, a Saturday afternoon. His wife beside him in his wagon, as into town they rode. There a deputy sheriff approached him in a manner rather rude. Vulgar words of anger, and his wife she overheard. Purdy boy grabbed a log chain and the deputy grabbed his gun. In the fight that followed, he laid that deputy down. Then he took to the trees and timber to live a life of shame. Every crime in Oklahoma was added to his name. But many a starving farmer the same old story told, how the outlaw paid their mortgage and saved their little homes. Others tell you about a stranger that come to beg a meal. Underneath his napkin left $1,000 bill. It was in Oklahoma City. It was on a Christmas day. There was a whole carload of groceries come with a note to say, well, you say that I'm an outlaw, you say that I'm a thief. Here's a Christmas dinner for the families on relief. Yes, it's through this world I've wandered. I've seen lots of funny men. Some will rob you with a 6-gun and some with a fountain pen. And as through your life you travel, yes, as through your life you roam, you won't never see an outlaw drive a family from their home.